So for a long time, I hesitated to publish this piece of machinery, which is an 876-page doctoral thesis, which I defended at the University of Paris, Panthéon-Sorbonne, under the supervision of Professor Sylvain Bollet. And back in September 2023, and yeah, the main reason for this video really is just to explain why I'm sharing it now. Mainly because if I don't share it, no one will have read it apart from Professor Sylvain Bollet, my supervisor, and the jury members, Professor Mathias Odid, Professor Laurence Boisson de Chazournes, Professor Diego Arroyo, and Professor Sophie Lemaire, and maybe a few of my students who alleged that they read it and thoroughly enjoyed it, but which I very much doubt they did anything other than perhaps skim read some negligible parts of it. And I don't blame them, to be honest. And so I just wanted to share it because otherwise it just feels a little bit like a waste. Um, and also I had various hesitations, to be honest, because I mean, first of all, it's hardly a thesis; it's more of an opinion, and it's really not revolutionary as an opinion. It's just a call for humility and in the international arbitration community, in how we represent our own opinions and represent opinions of those with whom we disagree. And the notion of ideology is actually quite useful in this respect because it it, it it tells you that as human beings we have a tendency to objectivize our own subjectivity and subjectivize the objectivity of others to the point of even discerning um, a lack of integrity or a lack of honesty or some sort of materialism in those supposedly subjective opinions. And so, and so, uh, I wanted to share it. I wanted to share it, despite the fact that I still feel, despite 8.5 years of work on it, despite changing my own opinions in the process, um, considerably, if not radically, actually, I still feel like it's incomplete and it's flawed. And I still worry that some people, because I do, obviously it's a thesis, and you I do end up discussing and to some extent criticizing, apparently criticizing opinions and interpretations of members of the community, practitioners, scholars, arbitrators, uh, and I was worried that they may interpret it wrongly, um, or that they may miss my underlying intention of making this more of a call to humility rather than criticism. But to be honest, after some reflection, I'm not too worried about that because I'm pretty confident that the individuals whom I criticize will have the discernment to distinguish between criticism and empathy. And if there's any room for doubt as to my intentions, I do repeat my intentions, sometimes implicitly, but oftentimes explicitly throughout my thesis. My intention, once again, being to empathize with members of the community, um, and the heavy burden that they carry in having to uh, decide cases with no appeal on the merits, with very high stakes, and with polarized opinions as to how best to achieve the common end in international investment law, which is prosperity for all states. So it seems like community members, despite the polarization, all agree that we all want maximum prosperity for everybody. It's just there are differences of opinion as to how best to achieve that. So thank you in advance for reading the introduction and conclusion. Unfortunately, I can't share the whole piece on LinkedIn because there's a limitation on the number of pages and on the file size that can be uploaded. But if you do want to read the whole thing, let me know and I'll email it to you. I'll take this opportunity to express my gratitude orally and not just in writing. This is the gratitude that I express on page 3. To my supervisor, for the rigor of his analyses, for the example of his personality, for the intelligence of his analogies, for the elegance of his humility. Thank you for your belief in the merits of what I had to say. Thank you for your trust in my capacity to coherently say it. Thank you for your guidance when I diverged from what I aimed to say. Thank you for your open-mindedness in letting me say what I end up saying and publicly defend it. And that's actually very important, because as a thesis supervisor, my Professor Simone Weil, it's not just, believing in your student's ability to write a thesis. It's also being open-minded enough to let your supervisee say what they want to say, bearing in mind that they're going to have to publicly defend what they're saying. And so thank you to Professor Boulay for his trust in letting me say what I end up saying and publicly defending it. And then my gratitude to my friends for their persistence, to my siblings for their patience, to my father through the layers, to my mother through her prayers, to my source, to my destination, to the presence.